Is it my face? Good. Okay. All right. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, guys. Very good evening to all of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please give me a thumbs up if you can see me clearly and you can hear my voice clearly. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much. Welcome to episode 9 of Read with Tertib. Today we will be reviewing chapter 3, part 2, inshallah, with Sister Najiba. Can you guys hear me clearly? All right, okay. I guess the voice is good. Okay, so inshallah, I will invite Sister Najiba to the screen. Assalamualaikum, Sister Najiba.
Waalaikum salam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Can you hear me clearly, Sophia?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. How about the people in Instagram and Facebook? Can you hear Sister Najiba clearly?
Good evening, everyone. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Okay. Hi, Mazliati24. And hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us. Okay, inshallah, Najiba, from the previous Read with Tertib, I have such a great moment with you. And I remember you shared about the subjective morality. Okay, so I'm looking forward for today's session. An overview for today's session, inshallah.
Okay, so as you have mentioned earlier, in the last series that we did, we talked about subjective morality and the idea of man's blindness and weakness towards their own moral intelligence. So it's wonderful that you were able to recall what we talked about, which is always nice to know that someone's listening very, very intently. So tonight, inshallah, we're going to talk about two things again. And I'll be talking, inshallah, within the span of maybe 30 minutes or so. Firstly, we're going to talk about the connection between eyesight and insight, inshallah.
Okay.
And then the second area of discussion that we will have is hopefully a framework for moral intelligence based on the book that we will be discussing tonight, which is With the Heart in Mind, written by Sheikh Mikael Ahmed Smith.
All
So,
right.
inshallah, two areas of topic.
Okay, so if you guys have any questions, you guys can drop your comment, your questions, your comments, anything that you want to add up to the session today. And inshallah, I will read them. And inshallah, Sister Najiba will answer them for you. All right. Okay, inshallah, Sister Najiba, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sister Sophia. Firstly, I'd like to bid everyone a very warm Salama al-Hijra because tonight is, the beginning of the new Hijri year, inshallah. So, new year, new goals, inshallah. And it's wonderful that most of you, the ones who have decided to spend your evening with us, it's wonderful to know that you are beginning your new year by listening to the book talk that we have tonight, inshallah. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, we're going to talk about two things tonight. Just to recall, the connection, number one, the connection between eyesight and insight based on this book. And secondly, a framework for moral intelligence, because tonight we're going to continue talking about chapter 3, and the title of chapter 3 is Moral Intelligence. Okay, so again, just to do a small bit of recap, in the last session, we talked about man's blindness and weakness towards sound moral ideals. So that means healthy understandings towards morality, because you get people who know the idea of morality, but may not necessarily apply sound moral ideals or sound moral understanding within their lives. Okay. And in an attempt to further characterize or further describe this blindness and weakness, the author in this book, Sheikh Mikhail, cites a book called Mishkat al-Anwar. And this book is written by the famous Persian philosopher Imam al-Ghazali. So Mishkat al-Anwar means a niche of lights in English, okay? Now, in the Holy Quran, there are verses that address this blindness that we talked about last time, okay? And what's even more interesting is that there are verses that describe our eyesight being veiled, or that there's this idea of a person's sight being covered, okay? So when something is being covered or when something is being veiled, you can always uncover it, or you can always unveil this something that you cover, okay? So according to the studies referred to in this book, okay, um, there's actually a direct connection between a person's intellect and a person's eyesight, okay? So when we talk about eyesight tonight, we mean physical eyesight. Now, the author, which is Sheikh Mikhail, believes that one of the most profound explanations that can be looked into to further understand this connection that we want to talk about, which is the connection between intellect and a person's eyesight, is this explanation can be found. This explanation about this connection can be found within the discussion of Imam al-Ghazali's book, which is Mishkat al-Anwar, okay? So before we go deeper, there are, I think, a few things to understand. In the Holy Quran, human beings have been distinguished from other creations with two types of insight, okay? So this is what makes us different from other God's creations. Okay, so this sight, two types of sight. This sight is metaphorically referred to as nur, or, among our Muslim brothers and sisters, we're more familiar with this term. Nur means light in its English translation, okay? So this two type of sight that I talked about, one is called basar, and another one is called basira, okay? Which is interesting because I think all my life I've thought that basira means light, but it turns out basar means the physical sight that we have. Basira, on the other hand, is insight. Insight meaning something like implicit vision or someone's understanding towards something. Okay, so you get the idea. Like a person can know something but not necessarily understand it. Okay, so knowing is maybe basar and understanding is basira, something like that. Okay, so Imam al-Ghazali continues to explain that one wisdom to identify behind the metaphor of light given to the human eyesight is simply because we need an external light source to see. So that means without external light, our eyes can't see. Our eyes can't produce its own light. We need an external source of light, okay? Now, I'm going to fast forward a couple of pages through this book, okay, because the part that I talked about was the middle part where we left off last time, okay? So to fast forward through a couple of pages, I'm going to draw an immediate connection or a direct connection between a person's intellect and a person's eyesight, okay? So Imam al-Ghazali continues, he explains that with guidance or revelation, the akal or our intelligence also needs an external light. It needs an external light source to depend on, okay? Just as our physical eyesight needs an external light source. Okay, so it's important to remember that while akal or the intelligence is, in a way, it's a type of light in and of itself based on the author's explanation, because what I mean is our intelligence is capable of teaching us. It's capable of guiding us from the right and wrong. It's capable of guiding others. So that's how our intelligence is, in a way, a type of light in itself. But at the same time, you have to remember that it's not the source of the light. Okay, so our intelligence can't be the source of the light. I'm going to give you an example. Okay, hopefully you'll be able to understand what I mean from this example. Okay, so the way our eyesight work, this example was given based on in this book, right? The way our eyesight works is, like I said, it depends on an external light. Okay, so in order for us to see, we need light. So that could be, I don't know, from electricity or candle, fire, but traditionally, the ultimate source of light will always lead back to the sun. So that means if we don't have fire, if we don't have electricity, the sun remains the ultimate source of light without even needing any assistance, if you get what I mean. Okay, so I want you to think about, now that I've said that, I want you to think about our insight, because the idea of light that I talked about just now was for our physical eyesight. But now I want you to think about the light that is needed for our akal, for our intelligence. Okay, so what about the light of the akal? So what kind of light would the akal need, or what kind of light would our intelligence need? Okay, so I'm not going to tell you the answer immediately to that question, because I'm going to give you like a bit of a cliffhanger, inshallah. So perhaps we can come back to the answer of that question if anyone wants to know more. Okay, I'm going to move on to the second part of the the discussion tonight. I'm going to move on to the second part of the discussion tonight, which is a framework for moral intelligence. Okay. So in the last series, I told you that I was going to talk to you a bit about the framework of moral intelligence. Okay, so I'm going to continue with the elaborations of Imam Al-Ghazali, because the way the author explained about moral intelligence is he used a lot of references from Imam Al-Ghazali's book, which was the Mishkat al-Anwar. Okay, so when Imam Al-Ghazali talks about the role of intellect, he uses the example of a rider on a horseback, so someone who rides a horse. Okay, and he says that this rider represents the intellect, and then the horse represents a human's body or his desires. Okay, so when someone is riding a horse, they should know where they want to go. Okay, like they would have a goal, or they would have a destination in mind in order to travel. So other than that, the rider should also know how to get there. Okay, like wherever we want to go, we would either know the route or we would need a map to navigate us. Okay, so the complete moral intelligence that was inspired into the heart and the intellect of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam provides man with the same knowledge. Okay, it's the idea of having, when you have moral intelligence, one should actually have the understanding of where they would be trying to go, right? And then how they would get there, and how they would remain on the right path, like, in order for them to prevent getting lost. And then if they were to happen to come across any problems on their journey, they would have some sort of idea to solve these problems or solutions, right? When on their journey to reach this destination. Okay, so in an effort to meet these goals that I talked to you about, this book has broken down moral intelligence into 5 different aspects. Okay, so the 5 different the 5 different aspects that was given in this book is, you should see it as a means to protect our akal, or to protect our intelligence. Okay, from any threats or any threats that we might face in our life. So the author proposes that we need to consider these 5 things. Okay, so I'm going to read you the 5 aspects that the author has proposed, which is, if you happen to have the book, you can turn to page 143 and read along with me. Okay, so it says here, we have listed the 5 capacities in their hierarchical order. Okay, so number 1 is moral compass. It says a moral compass that is calibrated to the prophetic ideals. Number 2, conviction and commitment to following those ideals. Number 3 is moral sensitivity, or the ability to recognize the right and wrong. Number 4 is moral problem solving, or the ability to apply moral reasoning to problems that arise in life. And then the last one is called moral assertiveness, or the courage to promote and defend that which is right. Okay, so that's quite lengthy. The description is quite long, right? So for you to remember, I mean, in a way for you to easily remember the 5 aspects that they talked about of moral intelligence, is, I'm going to summarize it for you. So number 1, a person should have moral compass. Okay. Number 2, a person should have moral commitment. So they're committed to these moral ideals. Number 3 is moral sensitivity. Okay, sensitive to these moral ideals. Number 4 is moral problem solving. So if they happen to come across any moral problems, they would have the idea of how to solve these problems. And then lastly, number 5 is to have moral courage. So ultimately that would mean if they see, I don't know, something wrong, then they would have the courage to fix it, or to voice out what they really want to, what they really fight for, what they really believe in. Okay. So tonight, I'm not going to get into the details of what these aspects are, because actually the 5 aspects that I talked about, it's really detailed, okay? And it actually further breaks down, like in terms of moral compass, how would one achieve, how would one have a good moral compass, and then in terms of moral commitment, what you should do in order to help you be committed to these moral ideals. So there's more detailed explanations on how one can understand what the whole idea of moral intelligence is, okay, and how to develop healthy or sound moral ideals in accordance to the moral intelligence of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when a person is believed to have an understanding of all these 5 aspects, it is hoped that these ideals would eventually define who we are as a person. Because I think what this book always tried to point out is that moral intelligence is basically how we carry ourselves. Okay, how we carry ourselves, the things we do, what we believe in, the things that we have faith in. Okay, because it is trying to tell you that moral intelligence is basically a way to define who we are. Okay, so I think that's the 2 areas that I've covered tonight so far. Maybe we can have a look at it's gone a bit quicker than the previous sessions that we've had before. But perhaps we can continue talking about this. Maybe if any of our viewers have questions tonight, and if even the moderator herself, Sophia, if she wants to know about where this light source for the akal would come from, right? So let's try and hear what our viewers might want to know more, or if they have any questions, or even if we can have like an interaction between myself and the moderator, inshallah.
All right. That's it?
Yes.
Seriously?
Because I think the rest of the chapter, beyond the moral framework that I talked about, it gets really, really detailed. And for me to actually talk about every aspect, I don't think it would be worthy for me to just explain the surface of each aspect, to be
Okay.
honest. Yeah, because it's really something that one should read. If I can say that.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. One of the viewers, she asked you to share the question you were asking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the question.
Okay. So, share. I think what she means is share the answer to the question that I posed. Probably.
She wants you to repeat
Oh,
the
repeat the
question.
question. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay. So, in the first session of the discussion tonight, I talked
Okay.
about the idea of eyesight and
Mm.
insight, and how there's a
Okay.
direct connection between the two, right? And
Mm.
in order for us to have eyesight, we need an external light. So that
Okay.
would mean, I don't know, light, right?
Mm.
Like,
Okay.
okay. So in terms of sorry, that's in terms of eyesight. In terms of insight, on the other hand, we also need a source of light. So the question that I asked just now was, what would you think would be the light source for the akal, or the intelligence? Where would that light would have to come from?
We need that answer, guys.
I think
Where
it's a
would that?
good.
Yeah.
I think it's a good like, what's the kataki in English? Yeah, I think it would be a good
Riddle.
riddle. Riddle. I think it would be a good riddle for you to think about, because that was how the author wrote the explanation to the connection of eyesight and insight.
Okay.
Because he asked the question to the reader, which was,
Mm.
while I was reading the book, and
Mm.
then I was like, yeah, that makes sense, because if we can't see without a light source,
Mm.
how would we be able to have akal, or how would we be able to understand concepts, or I don't know,
Yep.
like, yeah, have intelligence without this light source, if you can call it.
We cannot let like our mind wander on its own without any
Yeah.
guidelines, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So for the eyesight, it's quite literal when it comes to the source,
Mm.
right? So we need to think about the basira you will mention before, right?
Yes, the basira. Yes.
Okay, guys, we need the answer.
Does anyone have any questions, perhaps?
Okay, um, our viewers tonight are quite uh, engaging, maybe because tomorrow is holiday, so they have
Ah,
time. All right, okay. Question number one.
okay.
Can you please enlighten us with moral sensitivity? A brief
Oh,
example would do.
okay. Moral sensitivity. Okay. Um, like I said, based on this book, every aspect that the framework suggests
Mm.
provides a very detailed explanation. Okay. So, what this, in terms of moral sensitivity, sorry, it basically means when someone is sensitive towards his or her own moral ideals, or other people's moral ideals. Okay, so based on this book, in the beginning of the explanation of moral sensitivity, the author talks about his own experience. So I'm not going to talk about that, but later on in the explanation, what the author says is, and I'm going to read it for you: moral sensitivity is directly related to the moral idioms available to a person. Okay, so idioms mean, okay, I'm going to continue. The list of terms associated with moral approval includes forthright, unassuming, generous, faithful, honorable, considerate, trustworthy, modest, courageous, honest, pure, and it goes on with, it gives like a list of words that someone would be sensitive to, I think. So, the author continues: when a person learns the meanings of these words, so what the author calls moral idioms, and then
Okay.
learns the actions to which they are attributed, they develop a moral identity, or in other words, a moral ideal, which they themselves may or may not reach, but nonetheless remains ideal. Okay, so the idea is when a person is morally sensitive, they would, like I said, have the qualities of the words that I listed just now. And then, other than knowing these terms, they would learn the meaning and like how to apply in terms of generosity. How would they apply generosity into their actions, and how would they apply faithfulness and consideration? So I think, based on the author's explanation, I think that's what moral sensitivity means, inshallah.
All right. That's a good explanation. It's not where the artist, he put up all the characters that related to moral sensitivity so that we can follow, inshallah.
Yeah.
Right.
Inshallah.
All right. Thank you,
Okay.
Sister Aisha, for the question. Second
Okay.
question. Can you share with the audience a living example of a great individual with great moral intelligence?
I think
living example.
Oh, living example. Okay. That is quite a challenging question. I think it would be difficult. I mean, personally, I think it would be difficult for us to label one person, or, I mean, because I wanted to say that human beings, we're never one thing. We're always different things. We're made up of different things. We can't be good all the time, and we can't be bad all the time. Like, if we're good all the time, we're bound to trip and maybe make a mistake, or if someone who is bad, it doesn't mean that they're bad all their life. Like, they can change, right? So I think the idea, I mean, what today, the society that we live in, we're, like I said in the previous session, we're so quick to judge. And when we make this judgment towards a person, we kind of set a permanent label on them as though they can't change themselves anymore. Okay, so for me to give you a living example of someone who have a good moral intelligence will probably be like a portrayal at some episode in their life, if you get what I mean. Right.
What?
like an episode in their life where I witnessed that they
Okay.
Displayed good moral intelligence, right?
Yeah.
So I can list you, I don't know, my teachers, because they always have to put on this teacher role, right? And like make sure that they don't make any mistakes, and so that they can teach their students. Yeah.
Yep.
I would probably, I mean, that's in my life. I don't think I quite understand the question. Like, does the person want like an example of a celebrity, a famous person, or? But I hope that my explanation earlier kind of explains that no human being is one thing all the time. Because I think, a representation of a creation that is one thing all the time is the angels, because the angels is good all the time. Like, they don't have any, there's no changes in their behavior. They're always praising the Lord. And then the other example of a creation that is one thing all the time is, of course, the shaitan, who is bad all the time. So, inshallah, hopefully, if that person wants a good example of someone who have good moral intelligence, maybe we can start showing that within ourselves, inshallah.
Inshallah. Yes. We are all work in progress, right? We always trying to be better every day, inshallah. Okay, I hope Sister Najiba answer your questions. Sister Aisha, thank you for your questions, inshallah. Okay, moving on to the next question. So is it big basira equal to big insight?
Again, can you repeat that? Sorry.
Big basira.
Big basira.
Okay, for big insight.
Oh, okay, big insight.
Yeah.
Okay. Does the question mean if someone needs to have a big insight, they need a big basira? Is that what the question means?
Yeah, maybe it can be vice versa. When they have big basira, they can have big insight. Right.
Okay. Um, the book didn't exactly explain the idea of basira or insight in that manner, in that way.
Okay.
But I mean, based on the limitations of my understanding, I think, yeah, because I think basira directly means insight. So if someone has a, it's basically the translation. It's not basira is not an idea, and insight is not an idea, and it's basically the literal translation of the word. But in order for someone to have a bigger insight, it's about that light that I asked about.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I think everyone wants to know, like, what is this? Where does this light come from in order to enlighten or
Yes.
illuminate
Yes.
our basira? Okay,
Yes.
so, so,
I have to jot that down because I'm afraid I'll forget that one.
Okay. Well,
Yes.
I mean, I'm not trying to withhold the answer from our viewers tonight. It's just, I just thought of giving, that little riddle to our viewers because I think it's something to get your mind thinking about rather than just listening to me talking. Okay, so maybe I can tell you what this light source is.
Yes, of
Inshallah.
course.
Okay.
Mm.
So this light source, again, back to that parallel where with eyesight we need an external light to see.
Okay.
Um, in terms of insight, based on this book, it also says that we need an external light in order to have insight. Okay, so I'm going to read you a verse from the Holy Quran, inshallah, which is Surah An-Nur, verse 35.
All right.
Okay, so A'udhu Billah, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allah is the light of the heavens and earth. The likeness of His light is that of a niche in which is a lamp. The lamp is in a glass. The glass is as it were a glittering star, lit from a blessed tree, an olive neither of the east nor of the west, whose oil would almost glow forth, even if no fire touched it, light upon light. Allah guides whom He wills to His light and gives examples to the people, and Allah knows everything. Okay, so that verse talks about how Allah tells us beautifully that He is the ultimate source of light. Okay,
Inshallah.
so, right, okay, so He is the light of the heavens and the earth. And when we talk about this light from Allah, it's ultimately revelation. Okay, revelation is the light which allows the akal or the intelligence or the insight that we talked about to see correctly. Okay, without this light, one wouldn't be able to have basira or one wouldn't be able to have insight. So this light upon light that is talked about in this verse is, yeah, like I said, the light of revelation guiding the light of the intellect, inshallah. So that's the answer.
All right. Okay, that's the answer, guys. The revelation. Nurun ala nur. Yes. Correct. Nurun ala nur. Inshallah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Sister Aisha, she's very active tonight. She
Okay.
said that need stadium spotlights to illuminate our basira.
Wow. Inshallah. Stadium lights. Okay.
And she said, any questions in life, the answer must be back to God. Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah, that's true. Another interesting area that the author addressed, because he knows that, anyone who come across this book might not necessarily have religious faith, right? Which is something, as an author, it's always important to consider your readers from a
Yeah.
range of backgrounds. Okay,
Yes.
so what's interesting is that before he goes on to explain that this light is a kind of holy revelation. He actually addresses that. He actually addresses the logic of atheists. Okay, and how yeah, it's really nice because the way that he wrote it, before he explained the answer to that insight, he addressed the logic of atheists and how the logic of atheists is, he characterized it as something like, do you know, like a set of dominoes? Dominoes, when you play with the dominoes, I mean, if one falls, there's like a continuous chain of falling dominoes, right? So he made the he gave the example of an atheist's logic to the fall of dominoes, because after giving, if someone who doesn't believe in a higher being, which is in Islam, right? We believe in one God. So if an atheist doesn't believe in one being, then the arguments would be like, it would be in a way some sort of like giving one argument after another argument after another argument after another argument. There's no end to this argument, right? So yeah, so like the idea of our eyesight needing an external light, someone will probably argue, okay, well, we always have electricity if it's at night, because if we wanted to say at night there's no sun, right?
Yeah.
There's always electricity. And then if we say, okay, well, what if there was a power cut? Well, there's always candles. We can always light a candle. So there's this idea of always arguing, but then it will reach to a stop where, okay, if there's no other man-made light, the ultimate source of light would be the sun, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's this idea of this ultimate source of something. So what the author wants to say is that with insight, with basira and our intelligence, there needs to be a source. There needs to be a source coming from an external place. And it can't be from within ourselves. We can't say that, okay, if we read so many books, if we study, we're going to be able to become more intelligent. But then there needs to be, and there's this idea of continuous arguing. So yes, hopefully I explained that okay.
Yes, you explain it so good. I think our viewers can agree with me. Yes. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in tonight. I see Sister Aisha, Brother Ammar. We have Kelly. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Yeah, Sister Aisha said, beautiful answer.
Inshallah.
Brother Zahin, yes.
Okay. Inshallah. Again, it's always important to remember that when someone is delivering information, the person delivering is only a medium. So so any mistakes in the explanation that you hear, it's always from the person delivering, because yes, not the information. The source of information, if you want to have more clarity or more understanding towards it, pick up this book. Get yourself a copy. It's so good, I'm telling you, inshallah. And I keep telling Sophia throughout many sessions that there's so many things that I want to share, but because we have limited time, I can only pick out certain things, and I have difficulty preparing what to say, because these things that the author talks about links between one another. So I feel as though I have to talk about everything in order for you to understand one thing. So yeah, inshallah. Okay. I hope I did okay.
You did great. Don't worry. Okay, so before we end our session, do you have any last word?
Okay. I do have a couple of last words. I think after discussing about this book throughout 4 chapters already, inshallah. This book has 5 chapters in total. So the chapters that we've already discussed about is the introductory chapter, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. Tonight, alhamdulillah, we finished talking about chapter 3. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so from what I've gained personally from reading this book, it's a beautiful book for anyone who wishes to understand the complexities or the complications of human beings. Okay, because
Okay.
every day in our lives, we're bound to have friction within our relationship. So that would mean our relationships might not always run smoothly between our families, between our relatives,
Yep.
friends, workmates, right? This
Mm.
friction it's inevitable. Okay, so
Mm.
this book, it's in a way, it teaches us to how to somehow tackle these frictions, not necessarily solve, because these frictions will occur one way or another, but in a way, hopefully have smoother relationships with people, inshallah. And even if you're not into psychology or finding more about the human behavior, or even, I don't know, if someone didn't have an Islamic background, or if they weren't interested in the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at all, even, I think this book is worth looking into, simply because of the new ideas and
Mm.
methods that it suggests when observing ourselves and observing other people, inshallah.
All right. Okay, great. Thank you, Najibah. We did
Okay,
it.
you're
Another
welcome.
episode of Read with Tertib. We finished chapter 3. Inshallah, chapter 4. The second week of, no, the second Wednesday in September, inshallah, on 9th September. We'll be continuing reviewing chapter 4, inshallah. So I think that's about it. Right, Sister Najibah?
Yes, I think that's
Okay.
all from me tonight. Thank you so much for moderating the session, Sophia. You did a good job.
Thank you so much, Sister Najibah, for your willingness and your effort. Okay, so before we end our session, I have two announcements, inshallah. Three. Okay, the first one, Shay Mikhail Smith, the author of the With the Heart in Mind, Al Maghrib will host an online seminar with him this Saturday and Sunday, 22nd and 23rd August. Please visit live.almaghrib.my to purchase your tickets. It's still on promotional price. All right. Second announcement, book by Anak Tertib. Uh, Allah jagalah saya and Allah protect me. Still on promotional price until this 21st August. 2 more days. So grab yours now. And inshallah, last but not least, please don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook, Tertib Press and Anak Tertib, Anak_Tertib. Okay, I think that's about it. I want to thank again Sister Najibah and Brother Zahin for the wonderful layout and everything. Thank you so much. Okay, all right, I think that's about it. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.